Good evening. I'm Sean Roman, pinch hitting for Nisa Petrilli.
I'm Jay Kaplan.
I'm Steve Ferguson.
And I'm Anthony Strait.
And this is On the Sports Lines March Madness Special. If it's the third Thursday in March, then the madness is fully underway.
Booyah!
All right, yeah, and it's all we are going to be talking about tonight. Me and Jay have been watching this together since 1959. So we will preview the weekend's must-see games. We're going to tell you who will be busting brackets wide open and who has the absolute best chance to scare the undefeated Kentucky Wildcats. All that and much more. We want to hear from you, of course, so email us at fanspeak@onthesportslines.com. Send your tweets to @onthesportslines and your post to facebook.com/onthesportslines. We'll wonder if we'll read them on the show.
We'll read them on the show. I got some surprises coming for you.
Thursday's games are almost over, and Fridays have yet to start. So we are going to look at the best possible weekend matchup from each region. Each of us has one of the four. Anthony, start us off with the East. What do you think will be the must-see matchup this weekend?
Well, the matchup I'm focusing on this weekend is number 2 Virginia against number 7 Michigan State. This would be
I think that's the best one.
Oh,
You got
absolutely.
it right.
It would be a rematch of last year's Sweet 16 matchup. Michigan State barely eked out a 2-point win. When I'm
They're always
on,
tournament ready. They're a tournament ready team.
absolutely.
Unlike Notre Dame, Michigan State always shows up to play.
Oh, because
Yes.
Coach Izzo. How can you go against him in March? But
Exactly.
focus on the University of Virginia, and they're all about defense. You know, that pack line defense that has been much talked about.
Yep.
And here's some stats to
They
throw at
faded,
you.
though. We were so up on Virginia last time, and
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
stock went down.
So dated, it's one of the more stingier defenses in the nation. Let me give you some stats here. They've held the opponents to 41%. That's best in the nation. Here's the thing. 6 of the opponents have scored 40 points or less. 14 have scored 50 points. That pack line defense is almost like a modified man zone, if you will. It's basically cover for matchup issues. Where you have a ball handler just basically somebody pressing
You got
the ball
pressure on the ball handler, and
you got 4
everybody
guys
else is kind of stacked around the
stacked around
16-foot
Yeah,
area.
kind of stacked around a box. But the key is the health of Justin Anderson.
Yep.
Yes.
In the tournament last weekend, he played in 2 games. He was scoreless in 26 minutes. The offense struggled when he went down in
Yep.
February, broken finger, then an emergency appendectomy right after. So he's been out of action for several weeks leading up to
I
last
don't expect him
weekend.
to be effective. Yeah.
Well,
They
that's
say
when
he might be healthy come the
well,
weekend.
that's when,
Might be.
Malcolm Brogdon can step it up. He's the leading scorer. He can take over a game. So if he's not healthy, not 100%, and that offense is sputtering, he may have to step up and take over and score maybe 20, 25 points. Now looking at Michigan State's side, Travis Trice and Denzel Valentine, 2 key players. Travis Trice, he has the speed and the quickness to kind of get through that defense. And also, he's not afraid of taking a big shot.
No.
14 points a game. He's what you call a game changer and a big baller too when it comes down to the clutch. Also, Valentine, great playmaking ability. And I think, looking at off the bench, Matt Costello, Marvin Clark Jr., I think that he can give Michigan State just enough to eke out a victory in case another low-scoring game from last year.
All right, Jay, you
Yep.
got the South.
Yep.
Tell me what you're looking at.
I will be looking at a
my
rematch. Duke versus St. John's.
Oh,
now,
the
yes,
1000th victory for Coach K?
Yeah, yes, as an alumni of St. John's and an unabashed hater of Duke, that fan in me would love to see this game happen, if for no other reason, for a chance for my alma mater to get some revenge.
Amen.
77-68 loss we sustained. Coach K's 1000th win. St. John's is going to be without its best shot blocker. Chris Obekpa has been suspended for 2 weeks for violation of team rules. That's not going to help, considering Duke has Jaleel Okafor, who went for 17 and 10 the last time they met. And he had guards Quinn Cook and Tyus Jones combining for 39. St. John's is going to need a huge game from Sir Dominic Pointer. Went for 21 and 10 in the last matchup. Rashid Jordan added 18. They're going to need better performances from Phil Green and D'Angelo Harrison. Combined, those guys were 11 of 26, only 2 of 8 on threes, only 25 points. St. John's is going to have to dictate tempo on both ends of the floor, get out and run on offense because they're not a good three-point shooting team in the half court. They need to commit to shutting down Duke's three-point shooters, especially Cook and Jones. They were 6 for 13 on threes. Can St. John's pull the upset? Possibly. Will they? Odds are not in their favor.
They just got blown out by Providence,
right.
so that just makes them look bad.
Odds are not in their favor, but that's kind of why I want to see this game happen. It would be interesting.
St. John's, for some reason, always gets up for Duke. It's one of those
exactly. That's why I want to see it.
And for the past couple of years, Duke, I mean, they had Jabari Parker and weren't able to go anywhere in the tournament
I know.
this year.
So,
all right,
it would be interesting.
Steve, tell me what you think.
Well, I'm going to be looking at Kansas, Wichita State.
Midwest region.
And Midwest region.
I'm looking at that too,
And the thing is that Bill Self has pretty much tried to avoid and has avoided Wichita State for years.
Will not schedule
And
them.
now this time around, he may not have any choice.
I
He'll
like
have to
that.
face them.
Wichita State this is their, this is their Super Bowl of a lifetime.
And when you look at the guards that Wichita State has, you've got Ron Baker, Fred Van Vliet, and Tequil Cotton. And this is the team. Remember last year, this team was 34-0, and a lot of people think they're almost as good as the team from last year. Kansas does have some really good players. They have Perry Ellis, they have Wayne Selden, Kelly Oubre, and they have Frank Mason at point guard, who's a very stabilizing.
He's huge in the Big 12 final.
He definitely was. But the thing about Kansas is, with their talent level, they never play a consistent enough game, and that's one of the problems when you play Wichita State.
And they're missing Cliff Alexander.
Yes, and the triumvirate of guards that this team has, Wichita State, I think they can actually beat Kansas.
I like that. Interesting. All right, I have the West, and I am looking for Arizona, who, like Virginia, is one of the best defensive teams in the nation. Very tall and strong. They are one of the teams in the New York Times who gets criticized for not having this fast-paced style that everybody likes, but it is very effective. They've been ranked in the top 10 all year, and they're going to be, in my opinion, playing Ohio, who's already beat VCU. Ohio State. Oh, come on, everybody knows what I'm saying. Don't nitpick here with stupid corrections.
Ohio State Buckeyes.
They're coming off with a lot of momentum with their NCAA championship, where they were able to propel past the first round of a tremendous game as a 10 seed. I mean, I was looking at Ohio State coming into the year, and I thought they would definitely be a top 4 seed. They were just so high in the rankings. They have a top 5 draft pick. I mean, he's going to go D'Angelo Russell and going, so he's going to have to carry the team as far as they will go before he eventually leaves. They haven't had a presence in the low post since Greg Oden. That's their real weakness. So that's the interesting matchup. I think you guys have had a lot more exciting matchups than me, but with the region I was given, that's the best one I have.
Let me tell you something, Sean. Let me tell you something, Sean. Ohio State's coming off an overtime victory over VCU, and I don't know about you guys, but to me, that was one of the best games of the early session. Huge game. The question is can they recover in 48 hours?
I got a question for you. I mean, it got me ready for the tournament, watching ESPN's 30 for 30. Do you guys still hate Christian Laettner?
Yes. I'm a Tar Heel fan, Sean. Come on.
How about you?
Yeah, I still do.
Did you ever hate Christian Laettner?
Always did.
That was
that was a great 30-30.
Let's move on.
Okay, moving on.
Let's do it.
Let's talk about Cinderellas. It happens every year. A team no one sees coming knocks off a higher seed or 2 and blows everybody's brackets to kingdom come. We're going to take a look at 3 that could do some damage to your perfectly constructed bracket. And we're going to do it lightning round style. So, Jay, tell me what you think.
I got East number 7. Michigan State as my bracket
Can you
buster.
even call that a bracket buster with their pedigree?
Theoretically, you can't because of their pedigree, but
It's like picking Kentucky last year.
7 seeds traditionally do not go that far because they have to get through a 2 seed to do it. But before you jumped on teams that like busting brackets, today in the early sessions, number 3 Baylor loses to 14 Georgia State, and number 3 Iowa State loses to 14 UAB. 4th time in 3 years a 14 is knocked off a 3, but it's the first time since 1995 that 2 3 seeds have lost to a 14 on the same day, Weber State and Old Dominion.
That's true.
Wow.
Crazy. It's already the craziest tournament ever, and you guys know I say that every year.
You do say that every year. Why do you like this tournament so much? I always ask you, I always say to Jay, Like, what's your favorite
One
show of the year? He
and
says this
done.
right here.
Every game is one and done. You never know what
I
can
don't
happen.
see. I mean, this guy loves sports more than anybody I know, but this is especially so. This particular
loves it.
tournament.
Yep. This is why.
I like to see Jay happy at least one weekend a year.
Thank you, Sean.
This is the weekend.
All right, so Tom Izzo, they're not his most talented team, but this may be his best coaching job.
There
It's a
you
very
go.
heavy, upperclassman, battle-tested team, highly efficient, balanced offense. Brandon Dawson, Travis Trite, Denzel Washington, all in double figures. Forbes.
Washington?
Did I say Denzel Washington?
I think you did.
Denzel Valentine.
That's good too, by the way.
And actually, and he got game. Denzel showed some game.
that's true.
Here we go. All three of those guys, double figures in scoring. Bryn Forbes, who comes off the bench, 43% from downtown. When he comes in, Trice can move over to the one. Two guys from downtown who can shoot well. Everybody knows their roles, plays within their games. Excellent rebounding team, +7 differential. Everybody goes to the boards, led by Dawson, led the Big Ten at 9 a game. Holding them to one and done on offense, key, as is rebounding your own misses. Defense, intense, aggressive man-to-man, hold offenses to under 40%, barely over 30 from 3. They don't force as many turnovers as past Izzo teams, so the key for them is playing good positional defense. Here's the thing, they don't have much depth beyond Forbes and backup big man Matt Costello. Get their starters in foul trouble, you improve your odds of winning. They don't shoot free throws well either, only 63%. It's probably going to take a top-flight team from a power conference to knock them out. 6 of their 10 losses. Duke, Kansas, Notre Dame, Maryland, twice Wisconsin. They will be a tough out for anyone they play, and they could very well do some damage to your bracket.
Anthony, I want to ask you about the South. Who do you think could bust the bracket?
Well, I'm going with number 10, the Davidson Wildcats. Coach Bob McKellar. This may be his best team since that 2018, led
Steph
by
Curry's team.
Yeah,
Steph Curry,
Golden State Royals lighting up in the NBA right now as we speak. But check this out: 6th best offense in the nation, 79 points a game. They're 3rd overall in assists. A high-scoring team that don't turn the ball over, that passes. Another statistic: 19% fewer turnovers than their opponent. They also 534 total assists. The opponent's 391. So they are small. They don't have a single player over 7 feet or more on that roster. Then they have 4 of the 5 starters averaging double figures, led by Tyler Kalinowski. He is the A10 Player of the Year. He can shoot. He can drive. He's an excellent defender. If this team gets hot, they can beat anybody on a given night. It's hard to outscore a team that can just put it up and don't turn the ball over and make mistakes.
Yep.
The question is, can they play enough defense to compensate for their offense? If for some reason on a given night they go cold, which can always happen with outside perimeter teams. So that's what I'm be looking for. But they
Yeah, because they can't make up that shortfall in rebounding or defense.
yeah,
good point.
but it's also hard to beat a team that shoots 39% from 3-point line on any given night.
It's a big key if you're going to kill a giant.
Steve, now you mentioned Wichita State before. They are one of the lower seeds. They had the undefeated season going into the tournament. What was that, last year?
Yeah, last year.
So this year they've fallen off a little. So this year, are they in the role of a bracket buster in your opinion?
You kind of touched on it by saying they were an undefeated team last year, and this year they're not quite as good. But let's face it, when you have 3 of the best guards in the country playing, it's certainly possible.
You could do some damage.
Yeah, and the fact that they were 34-0 last year, you think they don't want to get to the Final Four? You better believe they do.
Kansas is very vulnerable always.
Yeah,
Fred
Kansas is
I gotta
always
tell
shaky
you,
to me.
Fred VanVleet is one of the more underrated guards in the nation. He doesn't
Yes.
get a lot of press because he plays at Wichita State, but he is a guy who can take
Very
over
talented.
a game. If he gets hot and Kansas gets schizo and
Yeah,
comes with
which they do very often in these kind of games.
if they get past Kansas, they could cause some problems.
I
Ohio
think so.
State could also be a bracket buster as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
With your 10 seed,
Yeah.
because whenever you have a top 5 draft pick, you could definitely go a few
Yeah.
rounds. And
Absolutely.
people underestimate
That's
10,
absolutely
not
true.
knowing where they were at the beginning of the season. If they gel at the right time, they could have a little run.
See, and this
Yep.
is why it's my favorite time of year,
Now we
Sean.
know.
Well, my ultimate bracket buster pick, as I told you before the show, Hampton.
Hey, you know what? It'd be so funny if he's right.
Wouldn't that be funny? if
one of
he's
these
actually-
days, a
one of
one
these
seed's
days
gotta
it's going-
fall.
It's going to happen
I mean,
one day.
one of the great undefeated
not gonna
teams,
happen.
Wichita State, then you had UNLV in
91.
91, and then 76,
Indiana.
Indiana. Awesome team. All right, and this year you have Kentucky going for that same type of glory.
Speaking of,
The number 1 overall seed is definitely the Kentucky Wildcats. They're looking to become the first team since the 1976 Indiana Hoosiers under Bobby Knight, the greatest coach of them all, to finish the season as the undefeated national champs. Can anyone knock them off like Duke did to UNLV in that 1991 Final Four? Anthony, Get us started. Who do you see that could put a scare into Kentucky?
I'm actually looking at the number 1 seed in the East region, and that's the Villanova Wildcats, the Big East champions.
2 losses.
Yeah, but have you ever seen a number 1 seed get so badly overlooked? Many consider them the weaker of the number 1 seeds in the tournament going in. But
you don't?
No, they're a streaking team. They going into the tournament. They won 15 in a row.
Yep.
Yeah,
They're red hot.
Yeah.
This may be Jay Wright's strongest team that he has ever had. Better than the 2009 team that went to the Final Four. But here's the thing. I love they play, they hustle. They have 2 very good players. Darren Hilliard, who led the team in scoring. Ryan R.C. Diacono, and I love
that's a great name.
I love saying that name, by the way. He was the co-Big East Player of the Year.
That's right.
Then you look at Josh Hart, another player that could give him a boost off the bench. This is a Big East tournament, 53 points in 83 minutes. In the Big East tournament, they can hit threes from all over the place. They're a small team, almost like Davidson, identical, but they can hit the threes. What I do like how they match up with Kentucky's bigs. If they can hit their outside shots, that's got to make their bigs play the perimeter. They got to play defense. They got to come out. That's going to leave that takes away from the real protection, and that will open up the passing, the lane. But also, they have history on the side. The 30th anniversary. Villanova.
Oh, that's right. It is. That's right.
I had to bring that up. 1985.
Nice.
Good game.
Yeah.
I think they have a puncher's chance. They're the number 1 seed, and they are disrespected. I think they can
Chip on their shoulder.
chip on their shoulder.
And they're
Jay Wright's a very
underrated.
good motivator.
I think that's a
Yes,
great
he is.
point, Anthony. All right, Jay, you tell me who could put the biggest
I'll
scare
tell you,
in Kentucky?
I said it on the last show, and I'm sticking to it. Duke is the 2nd best team in the country, and I think they are the one that has the best chance to knock off Kentucky. Think about some of the things you have to do to beat Kentucky. You got to hit threes, especially off drive and kick. You're not going to score through them against Kentucky. They block 18.7% of opponents' field twos. They hold opponents to 35% from the floor. You got to have size. They have 5 bigs. You need at least 2 to combat them. You have to rebound. Keep them off their O boards where they get a lot of their points, and you got to get on yours because the Cats are not actually a good defensive rebounding team. You got to control tempo on both sides of the ball. Keep Kentucky off the break. Make the Harrison twins become mid-range perimeter shooters. They're not that good at it. You got to get points in transition yourself before they can set up their defense. Got to work the clock if you're stuck in half court. Think about what Duke does really well. They hit threes. Cook, Jones, Justice Winslow combined 40% from the arc. Jones is a point guard who knows when to push the tempo, when to pull it back out. He makes good decisions when they're in half court. Okafor, an elite low post scorer who has a variety of post moves. It's going to make their Cats interior defenders work. He's learned how to kick out of double teams, which when you have knockdown shooters is a big dividend. Here's the other thing. Coach K has worked some 2-3 zone into his defensive strategy, paid dividends against Kentucky, slows penetration by the Harrisons, and protects Okafor as a low block defender. Okafor, Marshall Plumlee, Emil Jefferson give Duke some size to combat Kentucky's bigs, try to mitigate that ability on the boards. All that aside, here's what it comes down to for me, guys. At the end of the day, I'm going to quote Myron Metcalf of ESPN. No special strategies necessary. The Blue Devils could beat Kentucky because they're simply that good.
All right, Steve, round it out for us.
You know what? You said Duke is the 2nd best team in the country. Well, if that's true, maybe Arizona's right behind them.
Maybe.
Arizona can beat Kentucky for a couple of reasons. When you start looking at their guards, that's the first place you look. You look at T.J. McConnell, who's a terrific passing guard, and Stanley Johnson, this freshman, 6'7", 245, NBA ready, and probably will leave after this year. He's that good. Then you look at their forwards, Caleb Tarnowski, Rondé Hollins-Jefferson, who is a defensive ball hawk, and Brandon Ashley. These guys are tremendous players. And I saw them against UCLA, and UCLA had a 12-0 lead in that game. It was gone within moments. I mean, they obliterated UCLA, and when they have their running game going and they're shooting well, they are extremely dangerous to stop.
They are. The one other team that we actually should mention is your favorite
Well, that's
team.
what I want to mention.
Go for it.
Okay.
I think the team that will give them the best game would be Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And the
that's
reason
another
for
one.
that is on Kentucky you have another awesome team of freshmen, match up with anybody,
Yeah.
and then you have a team of sophomores. But what you don't have is a veteran team
No.
of 3- and 4-year players.
No.
And think about, we mentioned him before, Christian Laettner was a 4-year player
right.
who gelled his junior and senior year.
True.
So what you have is Frank Kaminsky here and a lot of veterans gelling around him.
Sam
They
Decker.
may have, remember how
Laettner
beat the Fab Five?
Yes,
That's
very
what
well.
could happen with Wisconsin and Kentucky. That's why I think they have the best chance.
He's a great big
Who do you
man.
think gave Kentucky the best matchup thus far in this year? Who played them the best?
Honestly,
That's a good question.
People gave them problems for stretches. I mean, remember, everybody was going, oh my God, Georgia has them by 4 points with like 18 minutes left. And I'm like tweeting out, I'm like, are y'all watching the game? How much time is left? And of course, Kentucky came back. Kentucky has had stretches where they've been challenged, but nobody's really given them a full 40 minutes.
I have a
They have
quick
so
question, I have a
much
quick
depth.
question
That's
too.
one of the reasons
What
they're so
style?
good.
Because remember, Kentucky's big, but they're also athletic. Do you play running gun? Do you slow it down?
Slow it down, like Virginia.
What style? What
Honestly,
Wisconsin and Arizona.
I would get out and run because as athletic as Kentucky is, for some reason, they do not get out and run as much as they should. And partially, it's because they're not a good defensive rebounding team.
So
I think
big
Arizona
teams,
can
All
take
right,
them out
guys,
of
we
the
got to
building.
get 2 predictions right now. Give me your final 4 predictions.
Anthony!
Quickly, I have Kentucky, Arizona, Duke, and Villanova, and I have Kentucky winning it all.
Steve?
I have Kentucky, Arizona, Duke, and Michigan State. Because Tom Izzo is fantastic
He
in March.
is. Who you got winning it all?
I would probably have to go with Arizona. I think they can pull this off.
Second national champion.
I've got Kentucky, Duke, Arizona, and Virginia. It was a toss-up, but I went with Virginia, and honestly, as much as I think Duke can scare the crap out of them, Kentucky's going to win.
I got Kansas, Wisconsin, Georgetown, and Virginia. Oh, no. Yes, that's exactly who I got.
Wow,
Pretty bizarre.
he thinks Kentucky's getting knocked off, but you know what?
Yeah.
Are we surprised that Sean's being
bad
very quite
one.
contrary?
What's your four?
Who's you winning?
Who's winning? it?
Wisconsin.
Wisconsin?
I do,
Wisconsin,
because of
why
veteran
not?
leadership.
I got to tell you, I'm in 2 pools. I have 3 brackets. I do have Wisconsin winning on one of them because if things break right,
You know what?
they very well
what's funny?
could.
We talked about it. This is Jay's favorite time of the year. I can just imagine when the alarm clock go off this morning. It's the most wonderful time.
I will tell you this. I don't work these 2 days.
We got some music, guys. It is time for the 3-minute warning. We want your opinion pieces. Start us off, Anthony.
Remember back in 2012 when the excitement surrounding the Nets move to Brooklyn was going to usher in a new era of basketball? You had the flamboyant owner, good for sound bites, a general manager with experience, brand new arena along with a young vibrant fan base. 3 years later, the Nets of Brooklyn is no different than the Nets that called Jersey home.
That's true.
The owner is virtually non-existent.
Yep.
The general manager has repeated the common errors he performed in Philadelphia.
I warned you.
Did.
The Fairweather fan base that roots for,
Brooklyn.
but not exactly the Nets. Even their cheerleader Jay-Z bailed on them.
Yep.
The problem is that they tried so hard to be better than the Knicks that they virtually became the Knicks. Poor ownership, bad contracts, and a clueless front office. 4 head coaches and a trade with Boston has become a disaster, leaving Brooklyn in shambles. With few draft picks and no salary cap room to be built right away, the foreseeable future for the team that wears black and white may be beyond 50 shades of gray. New city, new arena, and colors, same old Nets.
Hey Pete, just fess up and you're in the hall. In the mid-'70s, the Cincinnati Reds were feared by many, reviled by some, and sparkling with talent. Sparky Anderson with his stars and Hall of Famers like Joe Morgan and Johnny Bench, they were hell on wheels. But Pete Rose was the one who stirred the drink to a fine elixir. Relentless work ethic, passion for the game, and he played with fire. The all-time hit leader had 4,256 hits, won 3 championships, and played on numerous all-star teams. But something's missing here. He's not a Hall of Famer?
Nope.
Now, at 74, he's asking for reinstatement to the hallowed grounds. Maybe after 25 plus years of slamming the door in his face, it's time.
Nope.
Hey, Charlie, don't hustle us now. Fess up publicly and admit you bet on baseball. Otherwise, you'll just be a bitter old man full of sin and a footnote in the Hall of Shame where you'll belong.
That's right. Like most sports fans, I read articles about 49ers linebacker Chris Borland's retirement from the NFL after just 1 year due to his concerns over the long-term effects of the repetitive head trauma that comes with playing football. What I shouldn't have done after reading them was check the comments section. I'm no longer surprised by either the stupidity or the lack of empathy displayed by most of the people who leave comments, but I'm still angered by it. Among the stories I read was one that had Twitter reactions from current and former NFL players. Most of them were surprised by Borland's decision to walk away from the fame, fortune, and glory that come from being in the NFL, but none had anything but respect for what they knew was not an easy decision to make. Players understand things that those from the low end of the gene pool who spew nonsense in the comment section do not. Just how violent a game football is, and that while playing it at the highest level can bring financial rewards that can set them up for life, can also make the rest of that life a very painful one down the road and even shorten it considerably. A lot of players don't feel they have other options. Borland felt he did. People leave high-paying jobs in other fields all the time for all sorts of reasons. So all I have to say to the trolls, haters, and idiots who ripped Borland for his decision is, unless you've walked a mile in his shoes, you have no business passing judgment on him.
I haven't mentioned Tim Tebow on this show in how long, guys?
Not long enough.
But I often ask my colleagues, what's going on with Tim Tebow? We seem to agree that he looks happy and handsome on the SEC network covering games. That keeps him away from getting blasted by linebackers. But every now and then, I have the urge to put his name into Google News just to see if there's any football-related information. And a few months ago, I had given up on the idea of seeing him again in the NFL. But now his camp and personal coaches have released that he's been working out heavy for the last 18 months, doing his best to improve his mechanics. And he is actively pursuing a quarterback position. So far, he's got to work out with the Eagles, and I hope more follow. I remember his ability to run over some of the best defensive players in the league, and also lead a team on the verge of an atrocious season to a division title and a very exciting playoff victory. So I have a little renewed hope of Tebow getting one more chance to captain that NFL team. And remember, he has only one less playoff victory for the Broncos than Peyton Manning.
Had to remind me, Sean.
For Jay Kaplan, Steve Ferguson, and Anthony Strait, I am Sean Roman, and thank you so much for spending part of your evening with us. We hope to see you again on April 2nd for another edition of On the Sports Lines. And remember, if you want to see this show again or catch up on any of those you just may have missed, please check us out at youtube.com/onthesportslines. And take a look at our blog at onthesportslines.blogspot.com. Good night and go St. John.
Good night, everybody. Enjoy the
Go
madness.
UCLA.